The newsletter lay on the conference table like a grenade with its pin pulled. My own face stared back at me beneath the glaring red headline. Policy violator. 30 pairs of eyes burned into my skin as Leona pushed it toward me, her manicured nail tapping the paper with theatrical precision. "Read it," she said. The conference room fell silent. Not even the usual hum of the ventilation system seemed to work. Everyone should understand what happens when standards are violated. My throat closed as I picked up the paper, the glossy stalk slippery between my trembling fingers. Nadia Burke, I began reading my own public execution, has endangered client relationships by abandoning established design principles and implementing untested methodologies without proper clearance. The words blurred. Someone coughed. I forced myself to continue. Until demonstrating proper adherence to company standards, Burke will be restricted to administrative duties. When I finished, Leona smiled, not with warmth but with satisfaction, like a predator who'd finally cornered its prey. "Questions, anyone?" she asked the room. Nobody spoke. Nobody looked at me. I'd become invisible in an instant, except as an object lesson. "Meeting adjourned," Leona announced. "Nadia, stay behind." As people filed out, some with awkward glances, others deliberately avoiding eye contact, I remained frozen, the newsletter still clutched in my hands. "Your desk has been relocated to the administrative pool," Leona said once we were alone. "Your access to design programs has been temporarily suspended. Your current projects have been reassigned. But the Terralite project, the client loved the prototype. They specifically asked for sustainability options." My voice sounded small, even to my own ears. Leona's eyes narrowed. "We don't experiment on million-dollar accounts. 20 years of industry practice exists for a reason. Your personal environmental crusade doesn't trump company standards." I wanted to argue that reducing packaging materials by 40% while improving durability wasn't a crusade. It was innovation. But my words died before reaching my lips. "You may go." Before I continue with what happened next, I want to ask you something. Have you ever had that moment where someone took something you poured your heart into and crushed it in front of you? That gut punch feeling of public humiliation? If you felt that too, tap the like button and subscribe to hear more stories about triumph over workplace injustice. Now, back to that awful day. My name is Nadia Burke, and until that morning, I'd been a rising star in product design, top of my class at design school, recruited immediately after graduation, promoted twice in 3 years. Colleagues came to me for fresh perspectives. Clients requested me by name. My workspace had been filled with sticky notes from team members. "Nadia, can you look at this? Need your creative eye. Help me think outside the box." Now I walk through a maze of cubicles to my new desk, a gray slab wedged between the supply closet and the printer station. My personal items had been packed in a cardboard box. My design tablet was missing. In its place sat an ancient desktop computer and a stack of data entry forms. Petty, calculated, humiliating. I wasn't fired. That would have been kinder. Instead, I was being made an example of. The newsletter ensured everyone knew my punishment. The Terralite project had been my breakthrough. A leading consumer goods company wanted to revamp their packaging to appeal to environmentally conscious customers. During preliminary research, I discovered we could radically redesign their containers to use less material while actually improving structural integrity. When I'd shown Leona my initial prototype 3 weeks earlier, she'd seemed impressed. "Interesting approach," she'd said, examining the honeycomb-inspired structure. "But we'll stick with the standard redesign plan. Clients want familiar with a green twist, not revolution." But during the client presentation, when Terralite's sustainability officer mentioned their struggle to find genuinely innovative packaging solutions, I took a chance. I pulled out my prototype from my portfolio case. I developed this alternative concept that reduces materials by 40% while improving crush resistance by 12%, I explained, passing the sample around. "It's completely recyclable and costs less to produce and ship." The clients leaned forward in their seats. Their sustainability officer tested the strength herself, trying to crush it between her hands. Their marketing director immediately started discussing how they could leverage this innovation in their advertising. Leona's smile never wavered during the meeting, but her eyes turned glacial. In the elevator afterward, she'd said only 5 words. "My office. First thing tomorrow." I'd known I was in trouble. I hadn't known I was about to become a cautionary tale. That first day in administrative exile, nobody spoke to me. I entered data into spreadsheets, while overhearing snippets of conversation. She thinks sustainability matters more than 20 years of tradition, Leona told a group of designers by the coffee machine. Let her isolation be a lesson. I rode the subway home that evening, pressed against the door, despite the car being half empty. People sensed my shame like an odor. At least, that's how it felt. My apartment, a small one-bedroom with windows facing another building's brick wall, had once felt cozy. That night, it felt like another cage. But as I made tea with shaking hands, something inside me shifted. The prototype that had gotten me banished sat on my kitchen counter. I touched its honeycomb structure, admiring how something so light could be so strong. They're wrong, I whispered to my empty apartment. I cleared my dining table and turned it into a workstation. I pulled out my personal laptop and the design software I'd purchased for freelance projects. I had the base design. Now I would perfect it. For 2 weeks, I lived a double life. By day, I was administrative Nadia, quietly entering data, taking lunch alone, enduring the whispers. By night, I was still designer Nadia, testing variations of my concept with materials purchased from craft stores. I tracked everything: stress tests, material costs, environmental impact across production, shipping, and disposal. I photographed each iteration, noting improvements and failures. On day 15 of my punishment, I uploaded my complete research and design portfolio to the Sustainable Design Competition. I submitted under my own name, with no company affiliation. It was midnight when I hit send, and then sat staring at the confirmation screen, wondering if I'd just wasted $300 on the entry fee. 2 days later, I was sorting mail in the administrative pool when Tori, a junior designer I'd once mentored, approached cautiously. "Terralite is requesting you," she whispered, glancing around to ensure we weren't overheard. I nearly dropped the envelopes. "What?" "Their sustainability officer keeps asking for Nadia's concept. Leona told them you're on extended leave. They're getting impatient." She hesitated. "They really loved your design." That night, I cried for the first time since my public shaming. Not because I was sad, but because someone still believed in my work. It wasn't much, but it was something. The next morning, an unexpected email arrived in my personal account. The subject line read, "International Design Innovation Awards, Nomination Notice." I had to read it 3 times before I understood. My sustainable packaging design had been nominated in the Revolutionary Approach category. The committee wanted me to attend the ceremony in 2 weeks. My hands trembled so badly, I knocked over my coffee mug, sending brown liquid cascading across my administrative desk. As I mopped it up, Leona walked by. "Try to show some competence, Nadia," she said without stopping, even in simple tasks. I watched her walk away, her confidence wrapped around her like expensive perfume. She had no idea what had just landed in my inbox. No one did. That same day, I requested a personal day for medical reasons on the date of the ceremony. My request was approved without question. No one cared where administrative Nadia went. I couldn't afford much, but I visited a thrift shop and found a simple black dress that looked almost designer. I practiced walking in heels I hadn't worn since my college graduation. I rehearsed accepting an award I wasn't sure I would win. The night before the ceremony, I received another email, this one from a design firm called Green Future Designs. They'd seen my submission to the competition and wanted to discuss opportunities. I responded immediately, suggesting we meet after the ceremony. As I packed my bag for the next day's train ride to the ceremony city, doubt crept in. What if I didn't win? What if this was the universe building me up just to knock me down again? What if Leona somehow found out and stopped me? I barely slept. When my alarm went off at 5 a.m., I stared at my ceiling, suddenly paralyzed. Maybe I should just stay home. Maybe challenging the system was pointless. Maybe my phone pinged with a notification. It was a message from an unknown number. "This is Miriam from Terralite. Got your contact from someone who cares. We're still waiting for your design. What's really going on? We're ready to move forward with your concept." I sat up, heart pounding. This was real. My work mattered. I got ready with renewed purpose, applying makeup with precision, smoothing my dress, rehearsing what I might say when I won. The train ride lasted 2 hours. I watched landscapes blur past, transitioning from urban to rural and back again. Like my life, I thought, changing rapidly, nothing staying the same. The ceremony venue was grand in a way that made me feel small. Crystal chandeliers hung from ceilings too high to touch. Men and women in expensive clothing clustered in conversation groups, champagne flutes in hand. I checked in and received my name badge, then stood awkwardly near a column, watching, trying to belong, trying not to feel like an imposter. Nadia Burke? A woman approached, hand extended. I'm Kelsey from the awards committee. We're thrilled you could make it. I shook her hand, surprised by the warmth of her greeting. Thank you for the nomination. I still can't believe it. Your design is remarkable, truly innovative. The judges were impressed by the research behind it. She lowered her voice. Between us, you should prepare some remarks. My heart leaped into my throat. You mean, I've said too much already? She winked. But stay close to the stage. As attendees were ushered to their seats, I scanned the room one last time and froze. Leona was here, at a table near the front with other industry leaders. She hadn't seen me yet, but she would. When they called my name, if they called my name, she would know everything. I considered fleeing. I could leave now, retreat to my administrative pool, pretend none of this had happened. Then I spotted something on Leona's table, a familiar package prototype, my design, but different somehow. And in that moment, I understood what was about to happen. The real betrayal hadn't happened yet. It was just beginning. I moved closer, weaving between tables, straining to get a better look. It was definitely a variation of my design. The honeycomb structure was unmistakable, but there were subtle differences, tweaks to make it seem original to someone unfamiliar with the development process. A man at Leona's table held up the prototype, gesturing enthusiastically. I couldn't hear his words over the pre-ceremony music, but his body language screamed pride, as if it were his creation. The program booklet in my hand suddenly felt heavy. I flipped to the nominees page. There I was, Nadia Burke, Revolutionary Approach category, but 3 names above mine, Leona Voss and Design Sync Team, Revolutionary Approach category. They had submitted my design as their own. The lights dimmed. The ceremony was beginning. I slid into the nearest available seat, my mind racing. A woman beside me smiled politely, then returned her attention to the stage where the host was welcoming everyone. Tonight we celebrate innovation that pushes boundaries, the host announced. Designs that challenge us to think differently about our world. My phone vibrated in my clutch. A text from Green Future Designs. Looking forward to meeting you afterward. Our CEO is attending tonight. The Revolutionary Approach category would be presented after dinner. Through 3 courses, I barely tasted a bite, watching Leona's table from the corner of my eye. She laughed, clinked glasses, accepted congratulations from industry peers who stopped by her table. She hadn't seen me yet. I was counting on that. After dessert plates were cleared, the host returned to the stage. Our next category celebrates designs that fundamentally rethink established practices. The Revolutionary Approach Award. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. This was it. Our nominees are... Names and projects flashed on the massive screens. Then Leona's face appeared alongside my design, branded with her company's logo. The description cited groundbreaking sustainability achievements and 40% reduction in materials. My exact statistics. Then my name appeared, my unaltered submission photos, my data. Leona's head snapped up. Her eyes darted around the room until they found me. Recognition dawned on her face, followed by confusion, then something like panic. And the winner is... The host paused dramatically, opening an envelope with theatrical flair. Nadia Burke, for her sustainable honeycomb packaging system. Applause erupted. The woman beside me squeezed my arm. That's you. Go! I stood on wobbly legs. The walk to the stage felt endless. Leona's expression shifted from shock to fury as I passed her table. The man who'd been holding my prototype, a senior partner I realized, whispered urgently in her ear. The award was heavy crystal, cool against my palms. The host stepped aside, and suddenly I faced a room of industry leaders, cameras, and the woman who had tried to destroy me. Thank you, I said into the microphone. My voice emerged steadier than I felt. This design represents not just sustainability in materials, but sustainability in thinking. Innovation doesn't follow safe, established paths. It requires risk. I paused, making brief eye contact with Leona. I'd like to thank my former employer, I said clearly, who recently featured me in their company newsletter as a policy violator for creating this very design. Murmurs rippled through the ballroom. Heads turned toward Leona's table. Being labeled as someone who endangers client relationships by abandoning established design principles was painful. Being publicly humiliated and demoted was worse. The room had gone completely silent, but tonight proves that innovation matters more than tradition for tradition's sake. that sustainability isn't a buzzword but an imperative, and that sometimes the person breaking the rules is actually showing the way forward. I took a breath. This next part would change everything. I'm grateful to announce that I've accepted a position as Sustainability Director at Green Future Designs, where innovation isn't just permitted, it's required. Applause broke out again, louder this time. At a table near the back, a woman stood, raising her glass toward me, the CEO of Green Future Designs. Finally, I concluded, I want to acknowledge Terralite, whose sustainability team recognized the potential in this design from the beginning. Their commitment to genuine environmental progress made this possible. As I left the stage, clutching my award, cameras flashed. A reporter approached, microphone extended. Nadia, can you elaborate on your former employer's response to your design? Before I could answer, Leona appeared at my elbow, her smile tight and artificial. There seems to be a misunderstanding, she said smoothly. Nadia was working on our team's project. We've always supported sustainable initiatives. The reporter looked between us. Then why was she labeled a policy violator in your newsletter? Leona's smile faltered. Internal communications can sometimes oversimplify complex situations. We're tremendously proud of Nadia's contribution to our team's concept. It wasn't your team's concept, I said quietly. I developed it independently after being told it violated company standards. I have dated documentation of every prototype, every test. The reporter's eyebrows rose. You're both nominated in the same category for what appears to be the same design. Can you explain that? Leona's hand closed around my arm, fingers digging in. Perhaps we should discuss this privately. I agree, said a new voice. The CEO of Green Future Designs had joined our circle. I'm Vivian Russo. Nadia will be joining my team next week, and we've already secured exclusive rights to her design. The reporter's eyes lit with interest. So, Terralite will be working with Green Future, not Design Sync? That's correct, Vivian confirmed. We've finalized the partnership this evening. Leona's face drained of color. That's impossible. We have a meeting scheduled with Terralite tomorrow to discuss implementation. Corrected a man approaching our group. Miriam Sandoval, Terralite Sustainability Officer. We've canceled that meeting, Miss Voss. Our legal team has some concerns about ownership of the design concepts presented to us. The reporter was scribbling frantically in a small notebook. Leona's professional mask slipped. Nadia, a word. Now. She pulled me aside, her voice dropping to a hiss. What have you done? That account is worth millions. I know, I replied. That's why you were willing to steal my design after publicly humiliating me for creating it. You don't understand industry politics. Your design needed our company's backing to succeed. Apparently not. Her eyes narrowed. This isn't over. You signed non-compete agreements. Our legal team will carefully review the paperwork. I finished for her. Administrative duties aren't covered by the design department's non-compete clause. You might want to check the classification change form you signed when you demoted me. Leona stared at me, recalculating. I could almost see the gears turning behind her eyes. You planned this, she said finally. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. Interviews with design publications. Congratulations from strangers. A preliminary meeting with Vivian about my start date at Green Future Designs. Terralite executives expressing enthusiasm about working with me directly. By midnight, when I finally returned to my hotel room, my phone was flooded with messages. Former colleagues expressing shock at the misunderstanding. Friends congratulating me. Recruiters suddenly interested in my portfolio. And one from Tori, my former mentee, just saw the live stream. The office is Cheo's. R called an emergency meeting for 7 a.m. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed, award still clutched in my hands, and allowed myself one moment of pure satisfaction. But I knew it wasn't really over. Corporations like Design Sync didn't accept defeat gracefully. Leona wouldn't simply disappear. And Monday morning, I would still wake up in my tiny apartment with the brick wall view, still carrying the weight of public humiliation. The wind felt hollow, incomplete. That's when my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Nadia Burke? A woman's voice, unfamiliar. Yes? This is Patricia Mendez, editor at Design Revolution magazine. We've been following tonight's awards controversy. We'd like to feature you and your design on our cover next month. I gripped the phone tighter. What kind of feature? The headline we're considering is The Revolution We Resisted, How One Designer Changed Packaging Forever. We want the full story, your development process, the corporate pushback, and how you prevailed. We've already requested comment from Design Sync. Something tightened in my chest. Not quite hope, but possibility. What did they say? I asked. Their PR team issued a statement claiming they have always supported sustainability initiatives and that the situation with you was a communication breakdown during an innovative, collaborative process. I laughed without humor. Interesting rewrite of history. That's why we're calling you, Patricia said. We believe the industry deserves the truth, and we have resources to verify it. What resources? Let's just say someone forwarded us a copy of a company newsletter with your face on it. The one with Policy Violator as the headline. My breath caught. Who sent you that? We protect our sources, Miss Burke. But clearly, someone at Design Sync believes in setting the record straight. We'd like to interview you tomorrow if possible. After we arranged details, I hung up and stared at the ceiling. Someone inside Design Sync had taken my side. Someone had kept a copy of that newsletter, evidence of what they'd done to me. The next morning, as I packed to return home, my phone lit up with a breaking news alert from an industry website. Design giant Design Sync faces allegations of idea theft and workplace retaliation. The article detailed how multiple sources within the company had come forward overnight with stories similar to mine. Designers whose innovations were rejected, then mysteriously appeared in projects led by senior staff. A pattern of public criticism followed by private appropriation. I sat heavily on the bed, reading testimonial after testimonial. I wasn't alone. I'd never been alone. By evening, as my train approached my home station, Design Sync's stock had dropped 11%. Design theft was trending on industry social media. 3 major clients had publicly announced they were reviewing their relationship with the firm. As I walked from the station to my apartment, a text arrived from an unknown number. Board meeting tomorrow. Leona's position being reassessed. Thought you should know. You started something important. I stood on the sidewalk, staring at my phone screen. Pedestrians flowing around me like water around a stone. Something was building, something bigger than my personal vindication. But what came next would surpass even my wildest expectations. 6 months later, I stood in my new office at Green Future Designs, staring at the wall of windows overlooking the city. Sunlight streamed in, warming my skin as I arranged my workspace. I placed my International Design Innovation Award on a shelf beside my computer, a daily reminder of how quickly life could transform. Beside it sat a framed copy of the Design Sync newsletter with my face and the Policy Violator headline. Vivian had questioned why I'd keep such a painful memento. To remember what happens when innovation threatens power, I'd told her, and to make sure I never become what I fought against. The magazine cover featuring me had been released a month after the awards ceremony. The revolution we resisted, how one designer changed packaging forever, became the most shared article in Design Revolution's history. The contrast between the newsletter and the cover story, public humiliation versus industry recognition, crystallized something many designers had experienced but few had confronted. My phone buzzed with a calendar alert. Terralite Quarterly Review, 1 p.m. Our partnership had blossomed. My sustainable packaging design had launched 2 months ago, with pre-sales exceeding projections by 32%. Consumer response had been overwhelmingly positive, with unboxing videos praising the innovative structure going viral on social media. But success hadn't erased the lingering effects of my public shaming. I still hesitated before speaking in meetings sometimes, still felt phantom judgment when presenting new ideas, still woke from occasional nightmares where I was reading that newsletter aloud, my voice echoing in a silent room. Healing wasn't linear. As my therapist often reminded me, a knock interrupted my thoughts. Eli, one of our junior designers, stood in my doorway. The team meeting's about to start, he said, and there's something you should see before we begin. I followed him to our conference room where the design team had gathered. On the main screen was an industry news site with the headline, Design Sync announces restructuring amid continued client exodus. They've lost 6 major accounts in 5 months, Eli said, scrolling through the article. Their stock is down 40% since the awards ceremony. I scanned the text. Design Sync was eliminating a quarter of its workforce, closing 2 regional offices, and reorganizing leadership to emphasize innovation and ethical workplace practices. What about Leona? I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. Eli clicked another link. Officially, she's taken a leave of absence to pursue personal projects. Unofficially, he lowered his voice. Industry gossip says she's been pushed out but given a face-saving exit. My feelings were complicated. I hadn't wanted the company to collapse or people to lose jobs. I'd only wanted accountability and for my work to be recognized. There's more, said Renata, another designer. Design Sync just announced their new ethical innovation initiative. The press release mentions establishing clear attribution protocols and protection for individual contributors. The irony wasn't lost on anyone in the room. Design Sync was adopting policies that would have prevented my situation, policies they'd implemented only after public humiliation of their own. They're scrambling, Vivian said, entering the conference room. But the damage to their reputation is done. 3 client presentations this week specifically requested we highlight our ethics policies before talking design. The meeting proceeded, focusing on our upcoming projects. I presented updates on the Terralite partnership and introduced a new sustainability metric I developed for evaluating all our packaging designs. The team was engaged, asking questions, building on each other's ideas, the collaborative environment I'd always wanted. Afterward, Vivian asked me to stay behind. I received an interesting call this morning, she said once we were alone. Arlo West, Design Sync's new interim creative director. My stomach tightened. What did he want? To arrange a meeting. With you specifically. She studied my face. You don't have to take it. I told him I'd ask if you were interested. What's the meeting about? He wouldn't say exactly. Something about rectifying past situations and learning from mistakes. She raised an eyebrow. Your choice, Nadia. No pressure either way. I considered declining. I'd moved on. My career was thriving. Design Sync was part of my past. Yet curiosity nagged at me. I'll meet him, I decided. But not at their offices. I suggested neutral ground, Vivian said. The Art Gallery Cafe downtown, next Tuesday at 10. I can come with you if you'd like. No, I said slowly. I think I need to do this myself. The weekend passed with nervous anticipation. I rehearsed what I might say, imagined various scenarios. Would they offer apologies? Compensation? Try to recruit me back? None seemed likely. Tuesday arrived crisp and clear. I dressed carefully, professional but not formal. I wore no company logo, carried no business cards. This wasn't about green future designs. This was personal. The gallery cafe was bright and airy, with abstract paintings adorning white walls. I arrived early, securing a corner table with good sightlines to the entrance. At precisely 10 a.m., a man entered, glancing around, before spotting me. Arlo West was younger than I'd expected, early 40s perhaps, with salt and pepper hair and rectangular glasses. He approached with a tentative smile. Nadia, thank you for agreeing to meet. We shook hands. His grip was firm, but not domineering. He carried a slim leather portfolio, and nothing else. Coffee? He asked, gesturing to the counter. Once we were settled with our drinks, an awkward silence stretched between us. I'll get straight to the point, Arlo finally said. I was hired to change Design Sync's culture. The board recognized, belatedly, that the company had lost its way. That starts with acknowledging past wrongs. He opened his portfolio and removed a formal letter with the Design Sync letterhead. This is an official apology from the company for your treatment. It acknowledges that your design was innovative, that company leadership responded inappropriately, and that your public humiliation was unacceptable. He slid it across the table. It's been signed by the CEO and the entire board. I scanned the document, my fingers trembling slightly. The words were there in black and white. We deeply regret the mistreatment of Nadia Burke and acknowledge the valuable innovation that was inappropriately rejected. There's also this, Arlo continued, removing a second document. A settlement offer, financial compensation for emotional distress, and lost career advancement opportunities. The amount is negotiable. I glanced at the figure. It was substantial, enough to pay off my student loans and put a down payment on a decent apartment. Why now? I asked, looking up from the papers. It's been 6 months. Because it's the right thing to do, he said, then grimaced slightly. And because the company is fighting for survival. We've lost major clients. Talented designers are leaving. Our reputation is in tatters. He leaned forward. The truth is, your story resonated because it wasn't unique. You were just the first to speak out. I wasn't trying to bring down Design Sync, I said quietly. I just wanted recognition for my work. I know, he nodded. But what happened exposed a toxic pattern. After you won that award, others started coming forward. Junior designers, whose ideas were appropriated by managers. Women whose innovations were dismissed. then implemented by male colleagues. People of color whose concepts were labeled too risky, until white designers presented similar ideas. My throat tightened. So many stories like mine. What happened to Leona? I asked. Arlo hesitated. Officially, she's on leave. Unofficially, she's been terminated. The board wanted a quiet exit to avoid more negative press. But there's something you should know. He pulled out his phone, tapped the screen a few times, then passed it to me. It was an email thread from Leona to several senior partners, dated 2 days before the company newsletter with my face had been published. I've determined the sustainable packaging concept has significant market potential, she'd written. While Burke developed the initial prototype without authorization, I recommend we refine and implement the design ourselves. We'll need to discourage her from pursuing independent recognition. I suggest making an example of her to establish clear ownership of the concept. Another partner had replied, risky, if she can prove she developed it. Leona's response, she won't have platform or credibility after the newsletter runs. She'll be radioactive in the industry. We'll cite policy violations as justification. By the time the design reaches market, the connection to her will be forgotten. Cold rage washed through me. It hadn't been about policy at all. They'd planned to steal my design from the beginning. My public humiliation wasn't just punishment, it was strategic discreditation. How did you get these emails? I asked, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. Internal investigation after the magazine expose. We found, he paused, a pattern of similar behavior. The board was horrified. There are ongoing reviews of other potentially misattributed designs. I handed back his phone. Does Leona know you're showing me this? No, and she doesn't know about this meeting. The board authorized me to reach out to you directly. He gestured to the documents. Take time to consider the offer. Have your lawyer review it. I don't need time, I said. I want one additional condition, which is public acknowledgement. Not just a private apology, but a statement on your website and in industry publications that clearly states DesignSync wrongfully punished me for innovation, attempted to appropriate my design, and now recognizes me as its creator. Arlo didn't seem surprised. The board suspected you might ask for that. They've authorized me to agree to reasonable public statements. And one more thing, I added. I want that newsletter removed from your archives and replaced with a correction acknowledging the truth. That's reasonable. He nodded. I'll have legal draft language for your approval. We finalized the details. As we stood to leave, Arlo extended his hand again. For what it's worth, I believe DesignSync lost its greatest asset when they pushed you out. Your design is transforming the industry. Every client wants sustainable packaging now. I accepted his handshake. Sometimes innovation requires breaking rules. That's something I'll never apologize for. Walking back to Green Future Designs, I felt lighter than I had in months. Not because of the settlement, but because the truth had finally been acknowledged. My vindication wasn't just personal anymore. It had rippled outward, creating space for others to speak their truths. 3 weeks later, DesignSync published their public statement. Industry publications carried the story. Design Giant acknowledges wrongdoing. Honors Nadia Burke as true creator of revolutionary packaging design. The newsletter that had once branded me a policy violator was replaced with a formal correction and apology. My inbox flooded with messages from designers worldwide sharing similar experiences. Some had fought back, many had given up, all felt validated by what had happened. The settlement money arrived with a personal note from the CEO. Innovation sometimes requires breaking with tradition. Thank you for teaching us this valuable lesson. I used part of the funds to establish a grant for unconventional thinkers in sustainable design. We named it the Policy Violator Innovation Grant, reclaiming the label that had once been meant to shame me. When the first grant recipient was announced, a brilliant young designer whose biodegradable textile packaging had been rejected by 3 traditional firms, I presented the award myself. Sometimes, the most important innovations come from those willing to question established practices, I told the audience. Today, we celebrate breaking rules for the right reasons. The newsletter that once condemned me now hangs in my office beside my award and the magazine cover. Not as a reminder of humiliation, but as proof that speaking truth can change systems. That sometimes, public shame transforms into public triumph. If you've ever had your ideas dismissed, your innovations rejected, or your contributions minimized, know this: your vision matters, your perspective is valuable, and sometimes, standing your ground changes everything. Like, comment, and subscribe if you believe in defending your ideas against those who try to diminish them. Your story of standing up for yourself might be exactly what someone else needs to hear.